little girl just woke up from her nap. It was a little bit short, so
Okay.
I'm going to just say sorry now if she
No, please
comes in
don't
here.
apologize. My husband just took my kids to drive around for
Yeah.
45 minutes. So I totally get it. And I'm glad we're on the same page. How old is she?
She's 3, and
Okay.
I brought my kids. I live in California, but I brought my kids up to Oregon, so that they could camp with their cousins. So my
Oh,
boys are, like, out at the campground with their cousins, and I brought her to
how
I'm at my
fun.
mom's house
Yeah.
with me so she could hang out, but she was taking her nap, and it's like, "Oh, it's gonna be perfect time because that's when she naps. It's gonna be perfect." And then, like, 1 minute before I got on here, she woke up, and it's, like, early for her to wake up, and I was like,
Yes.
"No."
I know. But I just want to introduce you. This is Kim Walker Smith. She is a solo artist. She sings with Jesus Culture and has sung for Bethel Church. And now Jesus Culture has its own church. Yeah, that's
Yeah, we're
awesome.
going on 6 years.
6 years. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So the first time I heard of you, which I'm sure is many people's stories maybe, is the How He Loves YouTube video. And I was
Yeah.
just saved at that time. And I still have your whole part of you just preaching totally
Yeah.
memorized. And it was the first worship song after I was saved that I just played on repeat and just made me feel so connected. So for me, this is such a huge honor to be talking with you. I'm such a huge fan. My whole family, we just love you. So thank you for taking
That's
the time.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So I just want to jump in. Wild Heart, your new album, is coming out August 14th. And it's been 3 years since you released your last album. And you said previously that your previous album, On My Side, was written in kind of just a dry desert season. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about that season and how or if your emotions in life are different now as you've created Wild Heart?
Yeah. So the last record, On My Side, that all those songs were written, and that album came out of a time that was just honestly just really, really hard for me. My stepdad, who was dad in my life, had passed away from Parkinson's disease,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and we had prayed for many years, and he had prayed for many years for God to heal him, and never stopped believing that that was a part of who God was. And then we had moved to plant the church with Jesus Culture, and in that process, I had both my boys. I had my boys 14 months apart, which I did not mean to
Oh,
do, but that
wow.
was kind of crazy.
So you're a boy
Um,
mama? Just
I
boys?
am
Oh,
well,
no, and
and
your
I
daughter.
just had my little girl. Yeah, so my little
Oh,
girl came later, but
I love
yes.
that.
Um, so had my boys, and I had really severe postpartum after my second boy. And in the middle of all of that, it kind of felt like one thing after the other kind of happening, just a lot of just really, really hard things and really big stressors, moving. We had started a new business.
Wow.
Our home that we were trying to sell had flooded. It was like just crazy, crazy things going on.
Yeah.
And man, in that time, that kind of desert season, I I learned a lot of things about that, but one of the things that was probably the most impactful for me was recognizing that God is the one who leads us into those seasons. It
Mhm.
wasn't that I just stumbled into it. It wasn't that I made mistakes and found myself there. It says in Hosea 2 that the Lord is the one who leads us into the desert. And I realized that it
That's
was
good.
just for the purpose of meeting me where I was, and it was all
Yeah.
about intimacy and growing, and something I'd experienced before, but it's different every time, because you're kind of a different person and in different seasons every time. And coming out on the other side of that, anytime I come out of a desert season, it feels like there is fresh life and there's a greater authority. It feels like there's greater intimacy that's been developed in that desert place with the Lord. But this time, I kind of felt like I came out swinging a little bit. Like I came out with kind of a fresh fight inside of me.
Yeah.
Which the irony of all of this to me is that came into the whole transition that we find ourselves in right now in the world with the
Yes.
pandemic, and it's like it's crazy times,
Well, that's
crazy.
what I was gonna say is I feel like there are probably a lot of people listening who are like, "Man, I am in this desert season right now, and I
Yeah.
am clinging on for dear life," especially parents, because it's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I realized like coming out of that, in the desert time, I think that's when there is kind of new strength kind of forged inside of you.
Mm,
When you surrender to the season you're in. I mean, I think that's another thing is you go into a desert season and it's hard and your instincts are probably to fight or
yeah.
resist or go, what did I do wrong? And I got to get out of here. But
Mm,
I think that when we can recognize that the Lord is the one who leads us into those places and that there's purpose in that season, when we surrender to that season, that's when those things start to be developed and grow inside of us. And
good.
so that's what this record is all about, and expressing kind of the life on the other side of that. But also I wanted a lot of I want to kind of show not just the green and the abundance, but the dirt as well,
Yes.
the nitty gritty of the fighting through something and wrestling through something. And yes, it is hard, but yes, it is possible.
Worth it and possible.
Yeah.
And as I told you at the beginning of this, that's kind of the foundation that I've built my ministry on is the nitty gritty. And I think it brings people so much freedom to hear women like you saying, this sucked. I was in a bad place and I was
Yeah.
struggling, but here's where I'm at. And I've still, like, the Lord drew me out, but taught me so much. And so I guess I would ask if, do you have anything that you felt the Lord specifically taught you or that you'd like to share with our women listeners who might just feel like, man, I'm in the desert and God feels silent right now?
Yeah. Probably one of the most important things I've learned in this time. And, it's one of those things that you kind of feel like, for me, it felt like this is something that God has spoken before and shown me before, but maybe something that I forget about.
Yeah.
When you kind of come upon a mountain and go, didn't I face this mountain already? Why am I here again?
Yes.
And for me, that's really living surrendered to him.
Mm,
And I realize my brain has a tendency to kind of go, well, I surrendered my life to him at this age and I gave my life to him and that's it. But the reality of being a Christian and a Christ follower is that you are kind of having to live constantly surrendered to him.
yeah.
And for me, that's a little bit more of a challenge because I tend to be independent and try to do things in my own strength or try to like problem solve my way out of something. And
Mm,
so the moment I get into something hard or something difficult, or I'm kind of like, where are you? What are you saying right now? What are you doing? And if I don't hear him, if I don't instantly have an answer, my reaction is just to start running, start working, start doing something, where I think sometimes he's just asking me to just stop
mm.
and just surrender to him and just to wait and to listen, which is much harder. That is much
Yeah.
easier said than done,
Yes.
especially if you are a go-getter, proactive, and especially if it's uncomfortable. No one
Yeah.
wants to just sit in an uncomfortable season or an uncomfortable moment, but I think that's where something is being birthed and
Mm.
developed. For those of us who are moms who have given birth, we know about the discomfort that comes before the
Excruciating
baby. You
pain.
know what I
Yes.
mean? Yes. And you're just kind of at the mercy of that
Yeah.
discomfort until that baby comes.
Yeah.
And there's no avoiding that. So I think that the key in that is just
Mm.
surrendering to the moment, surrendering to the discomfort, surrendering to wherever it is that you are, whether you hear something or not, and just waiting on the Lord and allowing
Yeah.
his perfect time to manifest
I
itself.
love
Yeah.
that you relate that back to those pains because I think that's such a good example and analogy in regards to just resting and losing control because we're torn from the same cloth in the go-getter, take it all on. And that's something I've struggled with is feeling like some days I'm like, man, Lord, it's 9 p.m. and I haven't let you in to anything I've done today. I've just done it because I just do. And how empty that is when there's not a kingdom focus behind it. Like, really, what is the purpose if I'm not
Yeah.
focusing on the ultimate goal of making disciples and loving Christ and living more like him? So thank you for sharing that because I do think that's very relevant right
Yeah.
now. And we had shared, you'd shared that you are a mama of three and you've been a wife to Skylar for 11 years. And I've seen some videos that you've created music together. So you work together, you live together, you parent together. What would you say
Yeah.
is one of the sweetest parts as well as the most challenging of both of those roles as mama and wife to you, either in your life now or just always?
My husband, when we first got married, um, so I was 27 when I got married, and that was older than all of my friends who
Mhm.
had gotten married. I'd been single for a long time, and I already had my career. I was already making music, recording music, going around the world doing ministry, conferences, events, those sorts of things. And I always joke that he married a tornado, and married into an instant ministry family with Jesus culture. And he told me one time, there will be seasons when you're in the front and seasons when I'm in the front and
Mm,
seasons when we're side by side, and I am okay with all of those seasons.
yeah.
And I realized that there is not anyone else who could have who could have been married to me. He's not someone who needs to be in the spotlight. We love when we get to do things and take things on together. And he's also been the guy who has laid down many things to take care of babies backstage while I'm out on tours and leading things and doing stuff like that. And he's never complained or any of that. And
Wow.
he's a creative director for Jesus Culture. So he's got a really big role right now within our church movement, everything. He does all the creative everything. Um, but I would say that that's been the sweetest part. It's just been being married to someone who walks in so much humility and love, and who is
I love that you said that coming alongside you, behind you, in front of you, because it really is. There's so many different seasons of life and we need one another.
yeah. I would say probably the hardest has been that we are exact opposites. We
Okay.
are, I mean, on completely opposite ends in our personalities, and that has been the challenge of our marriage, sorting out, because it's not really. I mean, we don't. It doesn't usually affect too much in like career wise. It's more like the little decisions at home of
Yes.
how we run the house, how we parent the
How you
kids.
put the toilet paper on.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm super neat, super clean. He's not that way as much. Like
Yeah.
just all those little things.
Yeah, I love that. And what about being a mama? What has been, obviously you mentioned postpartum. I can imagine that was
Mhm.
very difficult. What has caused you to really grow in yourself because motherhood is so sanctifying? What would you say that's challenged you to grow and what has been that really sweet lesson that you've learned?
Um, you know, I've spent a lot of time before marriage, before kids, working on really becoming the best version of myself,
Mm,
really pursuing wholeness, both in my mental health and my emotional health, spiritual health, all of that. And I've invested a lot of work into that. And I don't feel like anyone's ever really arrived or attained perfection in any of those things.
yeah,
But I think that the beauty of it is just to at least always be on the track of growth and to always be pursuing growth.
that's good.
And having kids has ignited that fire even more in me, of just wanting to be the best version of myself for them, and recognizing that they get the best mama when I am taking care of me. And that was a hard lesson to learn. I would say
Mhm.
my first few years of being a mama, I sacrificed constantly for them, as mamas do,
Mhm.
but it was to the point of my detriment where I was not well. I was not okay. I
Yeah.
was not healthy. I was hanging by a thread. And I suddenly realized one day, I am no good to my family or anyone
Mm,
if I don't make myself a priority and take care of myself. And
amen.
so that was probably the greatest lesson I I mean, as you said, always learning from our
Yeah.
kids. That's
Yeah.
what they do. But that's probably the greatest one that I've learned that I've held on to is making myself a priority and taking care of myself, getting the breaks when I need them, taking the naps when I need them, getting a babysitter when I need it, like
Mhm.
setting certain boundaries. There's little things. I even have, this is like a small thing, but it was a big one for me, having a designated playroom and being like,
Mm.
destroy this room, do whatever you want
Yeah.
to this room, but the rest of the house is mama's. So you can't bring this out, because I was like, I just
That's
need
brilliant.
clean. But I realized that that's really hard for them. They're little. And so the compromise, and one of the greatest things was like, okay, I can let go of one room and let them do whatever they want to it. And they can learn even at young ages to respect the rest of the shared space that we all have and keep it neat and not drag their toys out. So
Yeah.
little things like that, to just take care of myself. I've learned things like that. Yeah.
I love that. That's one of the greatest pieces of advice one of my best friends gave me as soon as I had my first baby was as soon as you're ready, and you'll know when you're ready, take one day a week and do whatever you want to do. Like go and get your nails done, go and sleep, just take naps all day and watch TV. And I think her giving me that freedom, just like you're giving freedom right now to moms who struggle with the massive mom guilt that exists in almost everyone. But to have that like freedom to say, okay, you know what? I am a better mom. And I preach this all the time. Like, I am a better mom if I have that time to myself. When I come home, I'm not off the chains like rails, just going
Yeah.
crazy because I'm frustrated and depleted. We can just spend that time abiding in Jesus, give like having time to actually reflect on life and on our motherhood.
Yeah.
That's really necessary and healthy. So I love
It
that you
is.
bring that up, and I fully agree with you and think that it's crucial.
Yeah.
Um, so moving on to your book, and I first of all, I just want to say I want to play a portion of your song in a little bit because I've just been playing your record. Thankfully, I was able to get it a little bit early on repeat, and it is so good. But you've also written a book, and in the book, Brave Surrender, you're speaking vulnerably about your life, which includes abuse. And I read in an interview, tell me if this is true, that you've never shared those details with the public prior to the release. And so I'm just curious, like what, because for me, when I first posted my story on abuse, I literally just cried as I pressed submit. And when it was picked up by magazines, I was like, oh my gosh, this is not the one I wanted. I didn't want this one picked up. This is raw of like my promiscuity, my codependency, all those things.
Yeah.
But freedom comes. And so, what gave you the courage to speak out, and what has come from that decision?
I realized that I never would talk about why I worship the way I worship, or what makes me the worshiper that I am,
Mm.
in interviews or Q&As or things like that. I always kind of avoided the questions or skirted around the answers or gave kind of a surface level kind of answer. And I realized that, well, I mean, all of who I am as a worshiper, as a worship leader, the way that I worship is all because of the fire that I have walked through, and the way that I have found Jesus in all of that and what he has done in my life. And I can't really talk about what he has done in my life without first telling you why he did it and what I went through.
Yeah.
And I think that for a long time, I just was kind of afraid. I also had interesting family dynamics. In my family, we never really talked about this stuff. It was kind of like the past is the past and we're moving on and we don't really talk about it. And my sister and I, we both had spent lots of time in counseling. So her and I had talked extensively about the things of our childhood and the things that we had gone through, but not really with the rest of the family. And I just kind of had this thing inside of me that I just wanted to be able to freely talk about what God has done for me. And I knew that in the same way that, um, like one of the characteristics of me as the worship leader that I've heard people say a lot is I have a lot of freedom and I
Mm.
express a lot of freedom in my worship leading. And most people who have said that and talked about it, what they experience in that moment is an invitation for them too to step into that freedom. You see someone
Yes.
being completely free and you kind of go, well, if they can do it, I can do it.
Mm.
Like if they can be free like that, I can be free like that. I can worship Jesus like that.
I love
And I
that.
knew that if I could share my story and my testimony, that it would help bring an even greater level of freedom to other people who are dealing with or wrestling with or who have faced the same things. And I also kind of felt this thing of, so another thing that's kind of marked my ministry is the vulnerability in worship of how I
Yeah.
just kind of bare my heart to Jesus in worship.
It's the
And I just
best thing, Kim. It's the best thing.
I just I felt like no, I felt like even though I have that, no one knew me, is how it
Mhm.
felt. Like, I was kinda like, I want to be known. I want to be fully known. I don't wanna just be an icon on an album cover that is vulnerable when she sings, but no one really knows anything about her or her life. That just didn't
Yeah.
feel right to me. So I just made the bold leap. And, that's very reflective of my personality. I don't start small, just like put it all out there. Like,
Black and white.
just, yeah. So just, yeah, I just went for it, just dove in, put it in the book, and that was it.
And do you feel a sense of like when that launch day came, were you nervous or were you just so ready that it just brought you that sense of like, oh man, I'm so relieved?
It was both. It was both. There was definitely a feeling of relief, but there was also the nervousness, the oh boy, one thing I did not plan on was when the book released, they set up a bunch of interviews right around the book release. And suddenly they're asking me all these like personal questions about the book. But I
Oh,
was like, I just didn't think about now I'm going to be talking
have to
about it.
say it out
I think
loud.
in my head,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I was like, I'm putting it in a book and that's it. It's out there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I've done interviews for decades.
Yeah.
Like this is, but it's
It's
always
your
about
thing.
music. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just did not think about, oh, we're going to talk about this now.
Yeah.
And that was like a whole new level. I would say that's when it really hit me like, oh, okay, we're talking about this. We're going there. So it took me a bit to kind of get comfortable, I guess. But it was kind of like, well, here we go. We're going now. It's this train isn't slowing down.
Well, thank you for setting that example though, because I think that is just what like we're talking about. There's so much we keep connecting back to freedom. And that's just who Jesus is. He brings freedom and that living water that satisfies among all other things in this world. And I think we can say that a lot as Christians and it just becomes cliche, but it's like, man, even in the thick of coronavirus, when we're reaching for control or we're reaching for some normalcy, we're reaching all these things. It's like, Jesus still says, I am the living water. That's all you need is in me. And in that is freedom. And so I think what you've offered through Brave Surrender is the freedom to those women to say, okay, she spoke up, like kind of like the Me Too movement. You
Yeah.
see it just spirals and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And you get emails and you get calls of like, thank you so much. You gave me the courage to. And that is just the most beautiful gift. So I just want to say thank you for bearing your
Yeah.
soul. It can be
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but it's so worth it.
Thank you.
Sure. And so you talked a little bit about being a billboard of Christian music sometimes and having your face out there and having the fame. And I don't even know how many millions, tens of millions of YouTube views that you have and listeners. There's a lot of fame involved in that. And I appreciate just like you sitting here with such humility and kindness because that's awesome. And um, just a positive experience for somebody who's admired you for so long. And so, but I just want to ask, like, how have you balanced that? I actually had a conversation recently with AD Camp and Jeremy Camp, and he said, the Christian music industry, it can be a whole other game within itself. It's really difficult to not get caught up in all of the numbers and you have to kind of separate yourself from it. And so I would just ask you, how have you navigated and balanced your faith with the fame and not fallen off the train. You have Christian leaders and worshipers who say, I was faking it because it was just my job. And I think that's a really scary place to be. So how have you balanced it to maintain like a solid foundational faith?
Yeah. I think one thing that's helped me, this is not necessarily the answer, but it's helped, was that this is never really what I planned on doing with my life, nor was it like what I wanted to do with my life.
Really?
Um,
What did you want
I
to
was
do?
well, I wanted to be the first woman president. I wanted to go into
Oh,
politics,
fun.
actually.
Yeah.
So, and I was working as a banker when we were like a few albums in. I was
Oh.
processing loans, and I just this is not what I'd planned. Um,
Really quickly, have you taken the Enneagram, Kim?
I'm an
Are
eight.
you with oh, you're an 8. Okay.
I'm an eight, except that one of my friends who is obsessed with it, she says she's convinced I fluctuate between 8 and 3.
3. Yeah. I was
Yeah,
gonna say, I'm a
yeah,
3, and I could see a 3 so much, but I also know all of my 8s are like hardcore entrepreneurs or business people, or
yeah,
they're doing stuff. So
yeah,
anyway, I was just curious.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I think that helps. It just in I feel bad for like the young people who are dreaming of this as a career, and they ask me, how do I do it? And I never have my answer is always, well, I think you just fix your eyes on Jesus, and he opens the
Yeah.
doors when it's time, and they're like
Yeah.
they're hoping for like a
I
step by
needed
step,
more than that. Yeah.
yeah. But I keep people close to me who have permission and are more than willing to burst my bubble.
Yeah.
If my head gets too big, they're happy to come in and pop that, and keep me humble. Also, keeping my family close is actually a really great way of also remembering reality and humility. So my family has always traveled with me, and my kids have always come on the road with me. And I have spent many times, I run off stage and a kid has just pooped, and I'm changing a poopy diaper,
Yeah.
and the baby needs to nurse, and I'm nursing a baby. Then they're coming out and they're like, Kim, they're ready for you to go back on. I remember one time I was nursing the baby, and they came out and they said, the speaker wants you to come back out. And I handed the baby over. I go running out, and I realized that milk had come out, like
Oh,
come through my
yeah.
shirt, just all down the front of my shirt. And I did not even realize. So I'm just standing out there on the stage in front of thousands of people with this milk soaked shirt, just like, well, this is my life.
Yeah.
Baby's spitting up on me. I was pregnant on all of my tours. And I remember times in between songs, running off stage to throw up, then run back on and keep going. Like,
Mm.
just
You poor thing. That's
that
miserable.
oh, it was
That's
miserable.
so miserable.
But just that's, one way of just keeping your family close keeps you in that place.
Humility.
Also,
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago that the moment I let kind of like the praise of people become important to me, uh, is the moment that then their criticism will just take me out.
Yeah.
And that was a hard lesson to learn. It feels good when someone says, "Oh, I love you. You did such a great job tonight," or whatever it is. And then the moment that someone brings a criticism or attack, slander, anything like that, it's very painful.
Yeah.
And so now I've learned, that when the good stuff comes, I'm humble, I'm gracious, thank you, but it's going in one ear, out the other. I'm
Yeah.
not holding on to that. I'm not allowing that to feed any part of me. And then when the criticism comes, it's much easier to just let it roll off the back of me, because I've not made what people say important to me.
Yeah.
So,
That's so good. I feel like that is just such God's protection to, like you said, in one ear and out the other. Like that's not an easy thing to do when you're in the
no.
position that you're in. And so having that protection is evident in you. And I actually remember, I think this is John Mayer who said this a long time ago, but he said, I don't care who you are, me or Beyonce, whoever, you can go and perform and have 100,000 people tweeting about how good it is. And the one thing that's going to have power over you is the one person who says something negative. And so if you give power to the positive, you're also giving power to the negative. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's so good. But I love that you're sharing your stories of motherhood too, and the milk and all that. Cause I think for me, like social media has actually helped me, and obviously just getting older. But when you're little, you just have this strong idolatry of these people who are in the fame positions, and you want their lives and everything. But I think seeing just reality is so good for our, although it can get messy, of course, social media just can, but I think it's so good for our generation to be able to see like they're just human though, and just to be, I mean, the milk thing that would be like as a mama freeing for me of like, oh my gosh, she's just super
Yeah.
normal. And
Yeah.
again, bringing people back to that freedom to be human. So I want to quickly play a piece from the album, a song from the album. I'm just going to do like a minute of it, but this is Breathing Room.
I have found breathing room. My soul can rest in you. No longer have to fight. Burdens lifted. The weight is light. You are my steady ground. No need to worry now. The fog has cleared away, and I stand uncovered, walk in your grace. My heart is wide open, my heart is wide open. As I breathe in every word that you've spoken, my heart is wide open, my heart is wide open. As I breathe in every word that you've spoken.
So good. So good. It's all so good. Okay, so I have a question. So as Taylor Swift just released her record sporadically, you're releasing Wild Heart. I've just always been so curious. Like, how does an artist choose their single? Like, is it your favorite song on the album? Is it the song that's most reflective of the album? Like, how do you go through that process?
There's a lot of factors actually involved. The decision is made between myself and the record label.
Okay.
And for us, Jesus Culture we have our own record label, and then we have a partner, which is Capitol Records. So there's kind of two record labels involved.
Okay.
And we all decide together, and it's kind of like, um, I mean, I would love if it was just my favorites, but it's kind of hard because I get super attached to all the songs, and it's kind
Yeah.
of like picking
Do you have a
who's your favorite
favorite?
kid, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of hard.
Yeah.
Um, but we're thinking about, um, these are worship songs, so we kind of think about, well, what songs do we think will resonate with the corporate church? A lot of, out of all the songs, the majority of them would be great in corporate church, and majority of churches could lead them in their churches. But there's going to be some that are like, well, that's a little bit more like listen to it in maybe a devotional time or something
Mhm.
like that. Maybe not as much of a corporate song. But also you want to pick the songs that you think people will love and get excited about the record. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to pick as far as like the singles that you put out there, you want songs that people will listen and go, I love this, and I'm really excited for all the other ones to come out too.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Yeah.
my favorite one is You'll Always Be. That one
Okay.
actually comes out in just a few days, and
Oh,
I'm really excited. It's my favorite. It makes me cry every time.
oh. Well, thank you so much, Kim. It has been such an honor. I want to do a quick rapid fire so people can get to know you. If you don't know, just say I don't know, and that's okay.
Okay.
And then we will close out. Okay, so what are you watching on TV right now?
The Office.
Okay, I love
But
The
that's not
Office.
really on TV, but
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. Um, what has been your favorite or most memorable performance of your career?
Oh, that's a hard one. Well, probably How He Loves. I mean, that's kind of the one that changed everything, changed my
Yeah,
life.
yeah, awesome. What is your go-to book of the Bible and why?
Oh, well, probably Hosea, because it does talk extensively about the desert season, and it does,
Mm.
is probably the one that I've resonated with the most, and it brings a lot of encouragement to me in the hard times.
Awesome. What is the craziest rumor that you've heard about yourself that was not true?
Oh, that's funny. Oh, I gotta think about that one. With my last name being Walker, there's definitely been rumors of who I'm related to.
Oh,
When Paul Walker, I think is
yeah.
his name, when he died
Oh,
in the
car accident.
car crash. Remember, he's
Yeah.
an actor. Yeah,
From
he's an
Fast and
actor in,
Furious.
I think it's like the, yes, Fast and
Yeah.
Furious. Yes, and people were actually sending me messages of condolences.
Oh,
Some for some reason thought that we were related, and I thought that was kind of funny. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
How do you even
there's a
connect
lot of
the 2?
walkers in the world. Yeah,
Oh,
that was a
that's so
funny one.
interesting.
I
Yeah.
mean, but it's sad too, and so I had to
Yeah.
like say, just so everyone knows, it's very sad that he passed away, but I am not related to him, so you
Oh,
don't need to send me
interesting.
condolences anymore.
That's so interesting, the connections people make.
Yeah.
But okay, what is one quirky habit that you have that some people may not know?
Oh, well, there's so many. Okay, this is a weird one. I have this weird obsession with, I'll open up the cupboard and, take out a cup and close it. And in that little window of time, I take an inventory. I know exactly how many cups I have
Oh,
of the
really?
cup in there. And so when I pull it out, say there's like normally 10 cups, and I pull one out, and I counted really quick in my head, like I just do it like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's these 7 cups in there, and I'm holding one right here. And I have this weird thing of like, I need
Huh.
to know where are the other cups. And I'm
Do you
looking
do
around.
that with anything else in your house?
Oh, yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
I have, it's so quirky, and
Particularity. Yeah.
it drives my husband crazy.
Oh,
It's a weird obsession with numbers and a photographic memory. It's
wow. That's
embarrassing and weird.
kind of a blessing and a curse, though, I feel
Yes.
like. Yeah. It keeps
My
you on top of things for sure.
Well, my oldest son is a lot like me, and he says, "Mama's the best finder.
Oh.
When things get lost, Mama will find it." And he loves that. And he's kind of the same way. He likes to keep track of his things, and yeah, it's funny.
That's funny. I'm the opposite, and my husband will call it Lindsay looking. He's like, he'll ask someone if they can't find it, and then he's like, "Did you look or did you Lindsay look? Because if you Lindsay looked, you're not gonna find it," and it's offensive. But okay, last question: what is the most common misconception people have about you or Jesus culture that you have heard?
Hmm. I've gotten a few of them. Probably the funniest one I would say is my age. People think I'm like a teenager, and I'm like, well, no, haven't been for a very long time.
You are so youthful looking all the time, though. Like from your album art, which your album art is insanely good, by the way. It's
Thank
so
you.
pretty. But that to the How He Loves concert, I'm like, gosh, man, this girl doesn't age.
I I'm like, well, I look a lot younger than I am, I guess, and I love that, so I'll
Yeah,
take that one.
take it.
But I guess like a more serious one is when people think that we're just like, just I don't know, like all about music and don't actually like know the word or have like real relationship with Jesus. I think that's not a common one, but it's one that has come up, and I think that's a little bit weird to just assume.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's so interesting because I hear that so much about just the Christian industry as a whole. And I think that's all it is just assumptive, like almost trying to diminish what God has done in
Yeah,
your lives. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. So anyway, but yeah, that's
yeah,
unfair to make those
yeah.
assumptions.
I don't
And
really listen to that stuff.
yeah, good for
Yeah.
you. I admire that so much. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Kim. It was so wonderful. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.